Welcome, sleepy one. I'll be your storyteller tonight. Before we begin, please like and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And now, close your eyes. Let's begin. Back in high school, I wasn't the party type or the girl sneaking out past curfew. I was the dependable one. The kid teachers trusted to deliver attendance sheets, the neighbor people called when their dogs needed walking, and the one parents hired when they wanted someone responsible to watch their kids. My dad, Robert, was the sheriff of our small Missouri town, the kind of place where the loudest drama was someone's cow trampling the Johnsons' flower bed. He used to joke that his badge was just for decoration. "Nothing ever happens here," he'd grumble while stirring his coffee. "No action, no crime. Just the usual drunks on a Friday night." That calm reputation was exactly why babysitting always felt so safe. I'd been doing it since I was 14, and by the time I hit junior year, I had a rotation of families who trusted me completely. Easy money, really. The hardest part was keeping my eyes open on the couch until the parents came home. One chilly fall afternoon, my best friend Jenna and I were walking home from school, boots crunching on fallen leaves. We were mid-conversation about which teacher might secretly be dating the gym coach when we passed the old community bulletin board outside the diner. Back then, it was basically our town's version of Craigslist. Sun-bleached flyers layered on top of one another, church potlucks, yard sales, lost cat notices. "Hold up," I said, stopping in front of a faded yellow flyer. The paper flapped slightly in the wind. Jenna leaned closer, squinting. "Babysitter wanted for a toddler? That thing looks ancient." She was right. The corners were curled, the ink nearly gone, but a phone number was still visible, scrawled in black. "You think it's still active?" I asked. "Doubt it," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "But hey, can't hurt to try. You're always hustling for extra shifts." She wasn't wrong. I was saving for college and dreaming of buying my own car, anything to feel independent. So I dug a pen out of my backpack, scribbled the number on the back of my math homework, and shoved it into my bag. That evening, after dinner, I sat at the kitchen table under the hum of the overhead light and dialed. The phone rang 3 times. "Hello?" a man's voice croaked. It was rough, almost painful to listen to, like he'd swallowed smoke. I straightened instinctively. He sounded sick. Hi," I said carefully. "I saw your flyer about a babysitting job." I wasn't sure if it was still. "Yes." He cut me off, sharp and eager. "Yes, I do. For my boy. Are you free tomorrow night?" His sudden intensity made my throat tighten. Yeah, I could be." He gave me an address on the outskirts of town and muttered, "Be here by 7. Then click. The line went dead. I sat there staring at my flip phone, a dull unease crawling under my skin. Something about his tone lingered in my ears, hollow and urgent. Still, money was money, and growing up with a sheriff for a dad, I had this naive confidence that nothing bad could really happen to me. The next day after school, I tossed my backpack onto the couch, pulled on a jacket, and called out, "I've got a babysitting job tonight." "Where?" my mom asked from the kitchen sink. "Out near the edge of town. Guy sounded kinda sick. Probably just needs help with his kid." She frowned, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Be careful, honey. Call if anything feels off, okay?" "I will," I promised. The sun had already dipped low when I drove out there, headlights sweeping across rows of bare trees. The road narrowed, gravel crunching under my tires until I found the house, a weather-beaten 2-story with peeling paint and a sagging porch. It looked abandoned except for the faint glow from one upstairs window. The porch groaned as I stepped onto it. I pressed the doorbell, no answer, just a faint click. Slowly, the door eased open by itself, hinges whining. A small boy stood framed in the doorway, staring up at me. He couldn't have been older than 3. His hair was matted, his cheeks hollow, eyes too big for his face. He looked like a photograph faded by time. "Hey there," I said softly, crouching a little. "I'm Ellie. Your dad asked me to babysit." The boy didn't speak. His lips trembled, and for a moment I thought he might cry. My mom left with the angry man. "Daddy's sick." "Who are you?" His small voice trembled, thin as paper. I knelt down so my eyes met his. "I'm just here to keep you company tonight, buddy." From somewhere deep in the house, a man's voice called out, raspy, uneven, barely human. "Let her in, son." The boy stepped aside. The air inside was heavy and stale, thick with the smell of dust and something faintly sour. It felt like no one had opened a window in weeks. The furniture wore a film of neglect, dishes stacked high in the sink. At the far end of the dim living room, a closed door stood slightly ajar. "That's my dad's room," the boy whispered, pointing with one small finger. "He hasn't come out in 2 days." I hesitated, then walked over and knocked softly. "Sir, it's Ellie, the babysitter." We talked on the phone. "Are you all right?" A muffled voice replied from behind the door, the same weak rasp. "I'm fine, just weak. Please, could you fix my boy something to eat? He hasn't eaten in 2 days. Then call my mother. Her number's in the directory on the couch. She'll come take him." "Of course," I said quickly, glancing back at the child. My chest ached at how fragile he looked. Pale skin, hollow cheeks, eyes too big for his face. The kitchen was worse than I expected. Old takeout boxes and dirty plates crowded the counters, a sour, greasy stench clinging to the air. I opened cabinets until I found a dusty box of pasta and filled a pot with water. As I stirred the boiling noodles, I glanced at the boy. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Teddy," he murmured, his voice barely audible over the bubbling water. "Teddy," I repeated, smiling softly. "That's a good name. You hungry?" He nodded so hard his messy hair bounced. I set a plate in front of him at the table. He dug in immediately, eating like he hadn't tasted food in days. Watching him made anger twist in my stomach. What kind of mother walks out and leaves her kid like this? When he was done, his little face smeared with sauce, I said, "Let's get you cleaned up, huh?" He followed me to the bathroom obediently. I ran the water, checking the temperature with my wrist. When I helped him out of his shirt, I froze. Bruises, yellowed, fading, but unmistakable, mapped his small back. My breath caught. "Teddy, who did this to you?" He stiffened, eyes wide, then whispered, "The angry man and mom, they make Dad sick." I frowned. "What do you mean they make him sick?" He lowered his voice even more, like the walls might be listening. "I don't like Dad's room. He scares me. His lips don't move when he talks. His eyes don't blink. He just stares. The voice comes from him, but it's not him." Goosebumps prickled up my arms. "Teddy," I whispered, "what are you saying?" He threw his small arms around my neck, suddenly trembling. "Don't get sick like Daddy, please." My pulse thundered. I left him in the bathroom. The sound of running water muffled behind me and walked toward the bedroom. My hand shook as I pushed the door open. The smell hit first, rot, metallic and wet. On the bed lay a man. His skin was pale and bloated, his shirt soaked through with dried, dark blood. Deep stab wounds cratered his stomach. His eyes were wide open, staring blankly at the ceiling. A strangled gasp escaped me. I stumbled back, one hand covering my mouth, bile burning my throat. Behind me, Teddy's voice came small and trembling. "He talks even though he's dead." The room spun. My brain screamed run, but my body wouldn't move. That voice, the one that told me to feed Teddy, to call his grandmother, had come from this. I forced my shaking hands to grab the phone directory off the couch, flipped it open and dialed 911. My voice barely worked as I gave them the address. Then I called the number listed as Martha. The next half hour blurred into chaos. Red and blue lights flashed through the dirty windows. My dad was one of the first officers through the door. When he saw me, his face drained of color. He pulled me outside, his hands gripping my shoulders. "Ellie, tell me everything," I told him. All of it. Paramedics carried the body out under a sheet. Teddy clung to his grandmother, who had arrived moments later, sobbing into the child's hair. The investigation filled in the rest. Teddy's mother had been having an affair with a local drug dealer. One night, a fight broke out. The man stabbed Teddy's father to death. Afraid of being caught, they fled, leaving Teddy alone in that house, trapped with his father's corpse for days. He survived on silence, fear, and the delusion of a voice calling to him. No one ever figured out how I heard that voice too. Some said it was shock, my brain piecing together what I wanted to hear. But I know better. I know the sound of that rasp, the way it vibrated through the walls through me. Years later, I visited Teddy at his grandmother's. He was taller now, healthy, though his eyes still carried shadows. Martha hugged me tight, tears glimmering. "You saved my grandson," she whispered, pressing a folded bill into my hand. $50. It's what my son left for the babysitter. I kept it, not for the money, but as a reminder. Sometimes the dead don't rest easy, and sometimes babysitting isn't safe at all. I was 18 when it happened, barely settled into my first semester of college. Money had always been tight growing up. My dad owned a little hardware store on the edge of our small Ohio town, and my mom worked double shifts at a diner off the interstate. They did everything they could, but college tuition was another beast entirely. Even with scholarships and aid, the costs, books, supplies, food stacked up fast. I needed a side job that wouldn't destroy my schedule or drain me dry. Babysitting seemed perfect. I'd done it plenty for neighbors and cousins back home, so when I saw the campus job board full of postings, it felt like a no-brainer. Babysitting paid better than retail and didn't leave me reeking of fryer oil. Plus, I genuinely liked kids, most of them anyway. They were funny, easy to entertain, and unlike customers, rarely yelled at you. But there was one job, just one, that still makes my chest tighten whenever I think about it. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was in the library, half listening to the hum of printers and the low chatter of study groups while scrolling through listings on my laptop. My roommate had just invited me to a house party that weekend, but I'd already done the math. Couldn't afford the Uber rides or post-party pizza. That's when a fresh post caught my eye. Babysitter needed. Saturday evening. 2 children, twins, age 4. Pay $120, contact Henry Walsh. I blinked. One night, $120? That was nearly double what I usually made. I grabbed a pen and jotted the number down before I could second-guess myself. When I called, a man answered almost immediately. His voice was calm, clipped, polite, like someone used to boardrooms and briefings. Hello, this is Henry Walsh. Hi, Mr. Walsh, my name's Jenna Miller. I'm a freshman at Oak Ridge College. I saw your babysitting ad online. I've babysat before and I'd be happy to help out Saturday. There was a pause. Not long, but long enough for me to check if the call had dropped. Then he replied, voice smooth but distant. Yes, perfect, we'd love to have you. Can you be here at 6 sharp? The address is on Ridgerest Drive, number 412. It's in the Hillside neighborhood. I scribbled it down quickly. Hillside, of course. I'd only been there once for a church event years ago. It was the fancy area, where the driveways were longer than some people's streets. Yes, sir. 6 o'clock works fine. Good, he said. I'll text you the details. My twins are named Eliza and Noah. They go to bed at 8. There's food here, so don't worry about bringing anything. I'll cover your ride back when I return. Something about how flatly he said it, like he was reading instructions, made me shift in my seat. But I brushed it off. Rich people talk differently. Detached maybe, but polite enough. When Saturday came, I told my dad where I was headed. He worried too much. It came with being sheriff of our quiet county. Text me the address when you get there, Jen, he said over the phone, his voice carrying that half-serious, half-joking tone. And don't take rides from strangers except the Uber you order yourself. Got it? Dad, I'm fine. It's just babysitting. He sighed. Chill, nothing. Just promise me you'll trust your gut, okay? If anything feels off, call me. I will, I said, rolling my eyes once we hung up. Overprotective, sure, but I loved him for it. At 5:45, I ordered the Uber. The driver was quiet, middle-aged, some soft, classic rock playing low on the radio. The farther we went, the narrower the roads got, twisting through dense trees. By the time we reached Ridgerest Drive, the sun had nearly slipped behind the hills, leaving the sky bruised purple. The houses were enormous, sloping lawns, stone pillars, windows glowing like gold coins against the dusk. The Walsh place sat at the very end of a cul-de-sac, tall and dark with rich wood siding and wide glass panes catching the last of the light. The nearest neighbor's porch light was a distant speck. I paid the driver, texted Dad the address, and started up the stone steps. The air smelled of pine and something faintly metallic like rain on cold metal. Before I even touched the doorbell, the porch light flicked on, bright and deliberate. Seconds later, the door opened. Henry Walsh stood there, taller than I expected, maybe late 40s. His salt and pepper hair was combed back neatly, and his gray suit looked freshly pressed, like he'd stepped out of a board meeting instead of his home. Miss Miller? He asked, his expression unreadable. Yes, that's me, I said, forcing a small smile as I shifted my bag higher on my shoulder. Good. Right on time. He stepped aside, holding the door open. The faint scent of cologne and polished wood spilled out from inside. The entryway glowed warm with lamplight, but something about the silence behind him felt strange. No music, no laughter, no TV, just stillness. I crossed the threshold, hearing the soft click of the door as he shut it behind me. His eyes flicked over me in a way that made me instinctively cross my arms across my chest. "You must be Jenna," he said. Smooth voice, clipped tone, polite but cold. "Come in." The foyer gleamed like a magazine spread. A chandelier glowed above polished wood floors, throwing fractured light across the walls. To the left, a sweeping staircase curved upward. To the right, a pristine living room with oversized couches and a TV so large it looked like it could swallow the wall. "Sit," he said, gesturing toward the couch. I hesitated, but obeyed. He walked to the bar cart in the corner, poured himself a drink without offering me one, the ice clinking like glass teeth. "I'm Henry Walsh," he said, setting the bottle down with a practiced precision. "You'll be watching the twins tonight. They're upstairs." He turned toward the staircase and barked, "Eliza, Noah, come down." The sound of small feet pattered against the stairs. 2 children appeared, a boy and a girl, maybe 4, with identical pale blonde hair and matching blue pajamas. They stopped a few feet away, shoulder to shoulder, staring straight at me. "Say hello," Henry ordered. The girl blinked once, her expression oddly rehearsed, then smiled. "Hi, I'm Eliza. This is my brother Noah." "Hey guys," I said, crouching to their level, trying to sound warm. "I'm Jenna. We're gonna have a fun night, okay?" Neither of them moved closer. They just stared, solemn, unblinking. Henry tossed back his drink and set the glass down hard enough to make me flinch. "Bedtime is 8. Don't let them stay up late. There's food in the fridge. I'll be back around 9. I'll arrange your ride home." He checked his watch, muttered something about a meeting, and grabbed his keys from the counter. Before leaving, he bent toward the twins and said in a low warning tone, "Behave." The door shut behind him. The silence that followed was thick enough to hear my own heartbeat. I locked the door, then turned. The twins hadn't moved an inch. They were still standing side by side, eyes fixed on me. "Okay," I said lightly, forcing a smile. "It's only 6:15. You guys want to watch some cartoons?" Noah turned his head toward his sister as if waiting for her permission. Eliza nodded once. "Yes." I flipped on the TV, scrolling until I found a cartoon channel. They climbed onto the couch, sitting perfectly still beside each other, hands in their laps. I settled at the kitchen table nearby, scrolling through my phone as I ate a slice of chocolate cake I found in the fridge. Everything seemed fine at first. The sound of animated voices, the occasional giggle from the couch. The normalcy of it lulled me. But after a while, the laughter stopped. The TV still played, bright and loud, but the room had gone eerily quiet. I looked up. They weren't watching anymore. Both of them were sitting cross-legged on the floor now, back straight, eyes locked on me. My stomach tightened. You guys okay?" No response. "Why are you sitting on the floor?" I asked softly. Still nothing. Just that same glassy stare. I stood, forcing calm into my voice. "All right, it's almost bedtime. Let's head upstairs, okay?" They rose in unison, every motion perfectly mirrored, too precise for kids their age. As I reached out to take their hands, Eliza's small voice broke the silence. "He doesn't like when we call him Dad. His name is Mr. Walsh." I froze. "What do you mean he's not your dad?" Noah's voice was barely a whisper. "He brought us here. Said you were coming for us. Said you're our mom." The words hit me like a bucket of ice water. "What?" I stammered. "No, I'm not." Eliza's blue eyes shimmered with tears. "Please, Mama, don't let him send us away. He said he's gonna send Noah to another house." My pulse thundered in my ears. "Listen to me," I said carefully, crouching down. "I'm not your mom, but I promise I'm not gonna let anyone hurt you." "Okay?" Noah's bottom lip trembled. "He lies, he buys kids. He told Aunt Carol he'd sell us too." My breath caught. The room felt smaller, the air thinner. My dad's voice echoed in my mind, "Trust your gut." I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed. "Dad," I said as soon as he answered, "I need you to send police now. I think this guy's involved in something bad. The kids, Dad, I think he's trafficking them." His tone shifted instantly, sharp, commanding. "Stay with them, Jenna. Lock the doors. Help's coming." The next 20 minutes felt like hours. I sat with the twins on the couch, trying to keep them calm while the sound of sirens drew closer, echoing through the wooded hills. When red and blue lights finally washed across the windows, relief made my knees weak. Deputies flooded the house. Mr. Walsh never made it back. He was stopped on the highway 30 minutes later. His car stuffed with fake IDs, cash, and folders full of children's names. Eliza and Noah were taken into protective custody that night. They weren't his children at all. He had bought them through illegal networks, planning to sell them overseas. I still visit them sometimes. They live with a foster family now. Safe at last. And though I'm not their mother, every time they call me Mom, I can't bring myself to correct them because deep down, I know that night in the moment I chose to stay, I became exactly what they needed me to be. I never thought I'd be telling this story. Even now, as I sit here with my hands trembling over the keyboard, part of me wishes I could just delete it all, wipe it clean from my memory. But maybe writing it down will help me make sense of it, or maybe it'll warn someone, some other parent who thinks their home, their neighborhood, their child is safe. My name is Donna. My husband's name is Peter. We're both surgeons, busy, exhausted, always running from one emergency to the next. We work long shifts, pull overnights, miss birthdays and bedtimes. We have one son, Adam, he's 4. Managing a marriage, 2 hospital schedules, and a child sometimes felt like juggling knives. We loved him more than anything, but guilt sat with us like a constant ache. After 12-hour surgeries, after double shifts, there was nothing left to give, but he still needed us. Like most working parents, we leaned on babysitters. It wasn't ideal, but it was the only way to survive, and I told myself over and over that it was safe. We lived in Cedar Hill, a quiet suburban neighborhood just outside Boston. The kind of place where people wave while mowing lawns, where kids ride their bikes until the street lights come on, where doors stay unlocked without a second thought. That illusion shattered last month. It started so ordinarily it almost feels insulting now. Peter and I needed a new babysitter. Our regular sitter, Kim, had moved away for college, so I posted an ad on a local community board. Within 2 days, I got a call from a girl named Rachel. She sounded young, 19, maybe 20, with a soft, polite voice and an easy laugh. She said she was studying early childhood education, loved working with kids, had 2 younger brothers. "Mrs. Blake," she said, "I saw your post and I'd really love to help out. I'm available evenings and weekends, whatever you need." She sounded sweet, normal, safe. "That sounds perfect, Rachel," I told her. "Why don't you come by Thursday evening? My husband and I both have late shifts." She agreed right away. Thursday came, and true to her word, Rachel arrived exactly on time. Jeans, gray sweatshirt, hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She looked like any other college kid. Adam took to her instantly. Within minutes, they were sitting cross-legged on the living room rug, stacking blocks and laughing. While they played, I went over the basics. There's pasta in the fridge, bedtime's 8, cartoons off by 7, and absolutely no sweets before bed. Rachel smiled. "Got it, Mrs. Blake, I'll take care of him." Peter leaned close as we slipped on our coats. "She seems fine," he whispered. I nodded. "She does." As we backed down the driveway, Adam stood on the porch beside her, waving both hands like he always did when we left. His grin made it easier to pull away. That first night went smoothly. So did the next few weeks. Rachel became our regular sitter, reliable, warm, always cheerful. Adam adored her. He followed her around like a shadow, listened to her in ways he never listened to us. It was like she'd cast a spell over him. At first, I thought it was wonderful. Every parent dreams of finding someone their child feels safe with. But then, the little things started. One Saturday afternoon, Peter was at a conference and I was giving Adam his bath. The bathroom steamed up, his toy boats floating lazily on the water. As I scrubbed his back, I froze. There was a symbol drawn in black marker on his shoulder, a circle with a star inside. "Adam," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's this?" He twisted around, eyes wide. "Nothing, Mommy." "Don't tell me nothing, sweetheart. Who drew this on you?" He hesitated. Then softly, "Rachel did. She has one like it. I wanted one too, so she made me one." My stomach sank, but I forced a smile. "Oh, okay." I rinsed the soap off his shoulders, pretending it was fine. Kids mimic adults all the time. Tattoos are everywhere. It was probably harmless. That was my first mistake. A week later, I was cleaning Adam's room. The afternoon light filtered weakly through the curtains. When I opened the window to wipe the glass, something tumbled onto the sill. A tiny cross made of twigs bound together with what looked like strands of hair. I recoiled. It was too deliberate, too neatly tied. It didn't feel like a child's craft project. Maybe it blew in from outside, I told myself. Maybe some kids were playing nearby. But the air in the room felt heavy, off. I tossed the thing into the trash and told myself not to mention it to Peter. That was my second mistake. Weeks passed. Adam began to change. Our bright, giggling boy turned quiet, detached. He no longer raced toy cars through the hallway or laughed at the cartoons he used to love. Sometimes he just sat at the window staring out for hours at nothing. One evening, Peter pulled me aside in the kitchen. His voice was low, uneasy. "Donna, have you noticed anything strange with Adam?" I felt my chest tighten. "What do you mean?" He rubbed his jaw. "Last night I went to get some water. I heard whispering from his room. I thought he was asleep, but when I peeked in, he was sitting on the bed. Praying. Praying?" I repeated, confused. "We don't even go to church." "Exactly," Peter said quietly. "Where would he learn that?" I didn't have an answer. "Donna, have you noticed anything strange with Adam?" The way Peter said it made my stomach tighten. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, glancing toward the hallway. "Last night I went to the kitchen for water," he said quietly. I heard whispering from his room. I thought he was asleep, but when I peeked in, he was sitting up in bed praying. "Praying?" I frowned. "We don't even go to church." "Exactly," he said. "Where would he learn that?" I didn't know what to say. The next time Rachel came over, I decided to ask her directly. She was tying her hair up when I grabbed my purse. "Rachel, can I ask you something?" She smiled, polite and unbothered. "Sure, Mrs. Blake. Did you teach Adam to pray before bed?" She didn't even blink. "What's wrong with praying?" The question hit me like a slap. I froze, my mouth half open, realizing there wasn't an answer that didn't make me sound unreasonable. "Nothing," I said finally, forcing a smile. "Nothing at all." I dropped the subject, but the unease didn't leave me. Adam kept changing. One afternoon, I was outside trimming the roses, the sun warm against my neck. Adam sat quietly on the swing set, staring up at the sky, not moving, not humming like he used to. "What a beautiful day, huh, buddy?" I called out. He didn't answer. Then, out of nowhere, a small bird dropped from the tree above, landing hard on the grass. Its wing twitched weakly, feathers trembling. I knelt beside it, scooping it into my palms. "Oh no, poor thing. Are you hurt?" Adam came over, his expression blank. He watched the bird for a moment, then said flatly, "It's in pain, Mom. It should die." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Adam, why would you say that?" He looked up at me, and for a moment, just a flicker, I didn't recognize my own child. There was something in his eyes, something cold. Then he smirked, an awful, twisted little grin, and turned away, walking back toward the house without another word. That was the moment Peter and I agreed Rachel had to go. We hired a new sitter, Emma, our neighbor's daughter. Sweet, responsible, and from a family we knew well. The kind of girl you didn't have to worry about. That evening, before I left for my shift, I told Adam, "Emma's coming over tonight to watch you." His face darkened instantly. "Where's Rachel?" "She won't be coming anymore," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "Emma will take care of you from now on." His eyes narrowed. "I want Rachel." "You're not seeing Rachel again," I snapped before I could stop myself. "Go to your room." He glared at me, then stormed off, slamming his door so hard the frame rattled. Later, at the hospital, my phone rang. It was Rachel. Annoyed, I stepped into the hallway and answered. "What do you want, Rachel?" Her voice was calm, too calm. "Mrs. Blake," she said softly, "Emma won't be able to take care of Adam the way I can. You should reconsider." My heart kicked hard in my chest. "Listen to me," I said, my voice shaking. "Adam is my son. If you come near him again, I'll call the police. Do you understand me?" She didn't respond. Just silence. I hung up, hands trembling. Peter noticed immediately when I came back. "What happened?" I told him everything. The symbol on Adam's shoulder, the prayers, the bird, and now the phone call. His face drained of color. Donna, he said carefully, what symbol? The star inside the circle, I replied. He pulled out his phone, searched something, and turned the screen toward me. Was it like this? The image glowed between us, a pentagram. It was identical, I whispered. That's a satanic symbol, he said, his voice tight. Donna, she's not just some weird babysitter. Panic surged through me. My hands shook as I fumbled for my phone. I called Emma, no answer. I called again. And again. Nothing. Peter, she's not picking up. We bolted for the car, Peter already dialing 911 as we sped through the quiet streets toward home. My pulse hammered in my ears. When we pulled into the driveway, the house was dark. Too dark. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of smoke and something else. Iron, sharp, wrong. The living room was chaos. Cushions torn, a lamp knocked over. Emma lay unconscious on the couch, blood streaking her forehead. Emma! I screamed, rushing to her. She was breathing, but barely. Peter was already sprinting up the stairs. Adam! I followed, heart pounding so hard I could barely see straight. The hallway was pitch black except for a faint flickering glow from under Adam's door. It was locked. From inside came a low, rhythmic sound, chanting, Adam. Peter slammed his shoulder into the door. Once, twice, on the third hit it burst open. And what we saw inside will never leave me. Candles surrounded the room, their flames shivering in the dark. Symbols were drawn across the floor in what looked like soot, or blood. Adam lay motionless inside a circle, his tiny chest rising and falling shallowly. Kneeling beside him was Rachel. Her hair hung wild around her face, eyes glinting in the candlelight. She was chanting in a guttural language I didn't recognize. In her hand gleamed a knife, its edge pressed lightly against Adam's throat. Stop! I screamed. Get away from him! Rachel's head snapped toward me. Her smile stretched too wide, too human to be sane. The Dark Lord demands his soul, she hissed. Once I give him, I'll live forever. Rachel, please, I begged, stepping forward. He's just a child. Adam whimpered, tears cutting lines down his cheeks. Rachel raised the knife. In that instant, Peter swung a baseball bat from the doorway. The sound of impact cracked through the room. Rachel fell, blood spilling onto the candlelit floor. I lunged to Adam, grabbing him, clutching him to my chest as he sobbed. The police arrived minutes later. Sirens, shouting, lights flooding the yard. They found Rachel alive, barely, and Emma was rushed to the hospital. Later, the officers told us Rachel had ties to a cult. She was transferred to a psychiatric facility once her injuries healed. Emma recovered after a few weeks. Adam, he's safe. Physically. But some nights he wakes up screaming, whispering words I don't understand. Words that sound too old, too dark for a child's mouth. And sometimes when the house is quiet, I swear I still hear chanting, soft and low, coming from his room. I can't close my eyes without hearing it. I never thought a simple babysitting job could scar me for life. I was 16 the year it happened, and even now, decades later, I can still feel the way my chest clenched that night, the way the air seemed to turn solid in my throat. My skin prickled like I'd stepped into ice water. It was the fall of 1978 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Back then, my world was small. Our block of sun-bleached tan apartments, the strip mall with the laundromat and the corner diner, and the little high school where I tried my best to keep my head down. We weren't poor, not exactly, but money was always a strain. My dad worked at a garage, his hands forever stained with grease even when he sat down to dinner. And my mom cleaned rooms at a motel off the highway. They pushed me to focus on school, but I knew the score. If I wanted anything beyond necessities, new jeans, movie money, a little perfume, I had to earn it. Babysitting became my thing. I liked kids, and it was easy work. Put them to bed, watch TV, sneak a few cookies from someone else's pantry. It felt safe, familiar. Everyone in our neighborhood knew everyone else. That's how I met Mrs. Ramirez. She lived just one building over, a single mom in her late 20s, always rushing, her hair pulled tight and her diner uniform smelling faintly of fried onions and cigarettes. She had 2 kids, David 7 and Rosa 5. Sweet, quiet kids, the kind who colored patiently at the table while she got ready for her shift. She liked that I lived close. I liked the steady cash. It started like every other night I'd babysat. October 14th, a Friday. The desert air had finally cooled after the long baking summer. I leaned against her doorway as she knelt to hug the kids goodbye. "Bedtime's 9 sharp, okay?" she said, voice tired but firm. "Yes, ma'am," I answered with a grin. I always called her ma'am, even though she wasn't much older than my oldest cousin. She pressed a crumpled $5 bill into my palm. "I'll be back by midnight. Lock the doors. Don't open for anyone." "I got it," I said, pocketing the bill. She kissed Rose's forehead, ruffled David's hair, and hurried down the stairs toward the parking lot. Her heels clacked against the cracked concrete until the sound faded. Inside, the kids begged for one story before bed. We curled up on the couch and flipped through a worn-out Dr. Seuss book. Rose's head grew heavy against my arm. David's yawn came like a slow wave. By 8:45, both were tucked beneath thin blankets, their small breaths steady and soft. The apartment grew quiet, too quiet. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint buzz from the old TV when I turned it on low. I sat cross-legged on the couch, flipping through channels, sitcom reruns, the 10 o'clock news, letting the flicker of light keep me company. Everything was still. Until it wasn't. Around 9:30, I heard it, a dull thump. Faint, like something had shifted in the kitchen. I froze, a potato chip halfway to my mouth. My first thought, mouse. Second thought, maybe a cat outside. But the hairs on my arms stood straight up. I set the chip bag aside and walked toward the kitchen. The linoleum was cool beneath my socks, each step sounding louder than it should have. I flipped on the light. Nothing. The sink was empty, the counter spotless except for a couple of dishes drying. The small window above the sink was shut tight, latch secure. "Okay, chill out," I whispered, trying to laugh. The sound came out thin and shaky. "Don't be stupid," I muttered to myself, flipping the kitchen light off and heading back to the couch. The apartment sank into its quiet hum again. The kids' bedroom door was cracked just enough for me to hear Rose's soft breathing, a tiny rhythmic sound that somehow anchored me. 10 minutes later, another noise. Not a thump this time. A scrape, slow, deliberate, metal against glass. My thumb hit the TV's mute button instantly. The sitcom laughter vanished. I held my breath, straining to hear. It came again, from the sliding glass door at the back of the apartment, the one that opened onto a small concrete patio. The curtain there was thin, the kind that might as well not exist. I rose carefully, heart hammering, and crept toward the door. My hand trembled as I pinched the fabric and pulled it back an inch. Darkness. Only the faint orange glow from a distant streetlight spilling across the patio. But I swear, God, I swear, I saw something move. A shadow, subtle but there, shifting beyond the glass. My throat tightened. I checked the lock. Still latched. I stepped back, pressing my palm to my chest to steady the trembling underneath my ribs. "Probably nothing," I whispered. But even my voice didn't believe it. For a second, I thought about calling my mom. The phone was in the kitchen, a rotary nailed to the wall with a cord so short I'd be trapped standing there exposed. Sitting duck. That's when I heard it. Not outside. Inside. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Coming from the hallway that led straight to the kids' room. My blood went cold. I grabbed the first thing I saw on the counter, a steak knife. My hands were slick with sweat, the handle slippery. "Who's there?" I croaked. Barely sound at all. Then another step. I forced myself toward the hallway, every nerve screaming run. The kids' door was still open, a narrow line of light spilling through. I nudged it gently. David and Rosa lay fast asleep, their little faces calm, unaware. Relief flooded me, then stopped cold when I saw it. The corner of the room, a shape, tall, motionless, too dark to be a shadow. My breath caught in my throat. "Get out," I whispered. Louder this time, the knife trembling in my hand. The figure didn't move. I reached for the light switch and flicked it on. And there he was. A man. Mid-20s maybe, messy dark hair. Eyes like pits, flat, locked on mine the second the light hit him. He held a knife, longer, sharper than mine. The blade gleamed under the weak yellow bulb. I screamed. The sound tore out of me raw and terrified. I stumbled backward, crashing into the doorframe. He took one step forward, silent. I bolted. The knife slipped from my hand, clattering to the floor as I sprinted down the hallway. My lungs burned. My legs shook. The front door? God, the lock, I couldn't get a grip. My fingers kept sliding off the metal. Behind me, boots, fast, heavy, getting closer. The lock finally gave. I yanked the door open and flew into the night, barefoot, screaming, "Help! Somebody help!" A porch light flicked on across the courtyard. A man's voice shouted, "What's going on?" But I didn't stop. I ran until I slammed into my dad. He must have heard the screaming and come out. His arms wrapped around me before I even realized it, pulling me inside. I was shaking so hard I could barely form words. The police came quick. They found the sliding door at the back forced open, the latch pried. The man was gone. David and Rosa were still asleep, untouched. Thank God. There was blood on my shirt smeared where I'd brushed the wall in panic, not mine. They took samples, lifted fingerprints from the glass. For years it haunted me, not knowing. Then, decades later, 2025, I saw an article online. Cold case closed by DNA. The blood belonged to a man named Samuel Vega, a college student back then. Lived not far from us. He'd been cremated years ago. No relatives alive. But the police were certain. The worst part? That same night, another babysitter, 14-year-old Elena Torres, was attacked 2 miles away. She didn't survive. I stopped babysitting after that. Couldn't even walk past that building without shaking. And I never forgot his eyes. Cold, empty, like looking straight into death itself. I never imagined one of the easiest jobs I ever had would end up haunting me years later. Back in high school, I used to babysit for a family just 2 streets down from my house. Their oldest daughter, Julia, made babysitting feel less like work and more like hanging out with a friend. She was only 9, but she carried herself with a kind of poise that always amazed me. Her 2 younger sisters, Leah and Brooke, followed her everywhere like little shadows, copying everything she did. Because of Julia, the 3 of them were a dream to watch. They'd clean up their toys without being told, eat their vegetables just because she did, and even go to bed on time if Julia announced it was bedtime. Most nights, I'd sit in the living room half doing homework, half watching TV, barely lifting a finger. And Julia, she was one of those kids everyone knew was going to grow up beautiful and successful. She had long chestnut hair, bright blue eyes, and this polite, thoughtful way of talking that made every adult instantly like her. To be honest, I envied her a little. At that age, I was all awkwardness and insecurity, still figuring out who I was. Julia somehow seemed like she'd been born already knowing. By the time I graduated and left for college, Julia was old enough to babysit her sisters herself. I stopped going over, and eventually we lost touch. Life got busy. Classes, roommates, part-time jobs. Years slipped by. It wasn't until my 3rd year at university, while majoring in psychology, that I thought of her again. I was running a small study on meditation for one of my research methods classes. The assignment was simple. Pick a few volunteers and record their experiences. I could have asked anyone, but for some reason Julia came to mind. She'd always been calm, focused, the kind of person who radiated composure. Plus, I was curious to see what kind of person she'd grown into. I dug her old number out of a worn notebook, half expecting it to be disconnected. Still, I called. "Hello?" A voice said, soft, familiar. "Hi, Julia? It's me, Amber, your old babysitter." There was a short pause, then a burst of warmth. "Amber, oh my God! It's been forever. How are you?" I laughed, relieved. "I'm good, just drowning in college work. How about you?" "Senior year," she said with a dramatic sigh. "It's rough. Honestly, it was easier when you were around helping me with homework." Her words caught me off guard in the best way. I hadn't realized she'd even remember me, let alone miss me. "So why'd you call?" she asked, curious. I hesitated, then said, "I'm actually doing this little study for one of my psych classes. It's about meditation, super easy. I just need a few volunteers to try it for a few days and answer some questions. There's $100 in it if you're interested." She let out a small gasp. "100? Seriously?" "Seriously," I said with a grin. "Then I'm in. When do you need me?" We arranged to meet the next afternoon after her school let out. She said she'd be done by 5:15 and could meet me near the benches outside Richmond Station. The following day, I found myself unreasonably nervous as I waited by the station. Commuters brushed past in waves of chatter and perfume, the sky dimming to a pale gray. I kept checking my phone, my heart thudding harder than it should have for a simple catch-up. Then I saw her. Julia walked toward me down the sidewalk, tall and self-assured. Her hair fell in glossy chestnut waves, her face more angular now, her movements graceful in a way that made me suddenly aware of my own clumsy posture. She was smiling when she spotted me. "Amber!" she called, breaking into a jog. "Julia," I said, smiling back, trying not to sound awkward. Up close, I could see traces of the girl I'd known, the same clear eyes, the same easy confidence, but there was something else now too. Something unreadable behind her smile that made my pulse skip for reasons I couldn't quite name. "Wow, you've grown up," I said, taking her in fully now. The height, the confidence, the way she carried herself. She laughed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yeah, people keep saying that. You look great though. College suits you." We fell into step together, catching up easily during the train ride to my apartment. The rhythm of the train filled the spaces between our words. It felt just like old times, except now we talked about crushes, college, and what came after high school instead of cartoons or homework. Somewhere between laughter and nostalgia, I completely forgot to even mention the study. When we got off the train, we passed a small pizza joint glowing under a flickering neon sign. Julia's eyes lingered on it. "Hungry?" I asked. She smirked. "Starving." So we went inside, ordered a large pepperoni, and while waiting, I slipped next door to grab a case of beer. When I came back, Julia's brows shot up. Amber, you know I'm 17, right?" I grinned, setting the case on the table. "I know. But hey, I'm not your babysitter anymore. 1 or 2 won't hurt. Loosen you up a little." She hesitated, biting her lip. Then she shrugged. "Okay, but if my mom finds out, I'm blaming you." We both laughed. By the time we made it to my apartment, the mood was easy and warm. We kicked off our shoes, spread the pizza box on the coffee table, and spent hours talking between greasy slices and sips of beer. The city lights pulsed faintly through the blinds, throwing lines of gold across her face. At one point, Julia leaned back against the couch cushion and sighed. "I really missed this," she said softly. "Having someone to just hang out with. Senior year's been rough. I feel like I'm under so much pressure all the time." Her voice cracked a little and it caught me off guard. I remembered envying her perfect composure when she was a kid, how everything about her seemed effortless. And now here she was, confessing she felt the same anxieties I'd carried for years. "Hey," I said gently. "You're doing great, really. You always have." She smiled faintly. "Thanks, Amber." Then it hit me. I'd completely forgotten why I'd asked her over. "Oh crap," I blurted, sitting up. "The study." "I almost forgot." Julia laughed. "You mean I'm not just here for pizza and beer?" "Well, that too," I said sheepishly. "But if you're still up for it, it won't take long." She shrugged. "Sure, let's do it." We moved to my small bedroom. I dimmed the lights, lit a few candles on my desk, and turned on a low ambient playlist. The air smelled faintly of wax and pepperoni grease. I handed her a short questionnaire. Mood check, stress levels, sleep patterns, then guided her to sit cross-legged on the bed. "Okay," I said softly. "Close your eyes. Just breathe in and out. Focus on the air moving through your body. Let go of any tension." She followed my instructions with steady breaths. Her shoulders loosened, her face softened. For a while it was peaceful, the kind of calm I'd wanted to capture in my notes. Then, slowly, something changed. Her breathing grew uneven. Her responses to my voice became delayed. "Julia?" I asked quietly. "Can you open your eyes for me?" "Nothing, Julia." I leaned closer. Her lips parted slightly, but the sound that came out was garbled, slurred. My stomach dropped. "Hey, Julia, are you okay?" Her head tilted back, her body jerking suddenly. Then she sagged sideways onto the bed, her limbs twitching uncontrollably. Foam gathered at the corner of her mouth. "Julia!" I cried, shaking her shoulders. "Oh my God, Julia, wake up! Are you having a seizure?" Her body convulsed harder, her breath shallow and ragged. Panic flooded me so fast I couldn't think straight. The candles flickered wildly, shadows trembling across the walls. Come on, I whispered, my voice breaking. I grabbed her wrist, her pulse was erratic. I wanted to call 911, my fingers hovering over the phone, but a wave of shame hit me so hard I froze. What would I even say? That I'd given a 17-year-old beer? Made her meditate and now she wasn't breathing right? That I, the psychology student, the responsible babysitter, had done this?
Please, Julia, just wake up, I begged, shaking her again.
Her eyes rolled back. Her chest rose once, twice, then stilled. The world went silent. I don't know how long I sat there, the phone clutched in my trembling hand, the candles burning down to stubs. When I finally called for help, it was too late. Julia never woke up that night. The aftermath blurred into weeks of chaos, search teams, missing posters, tearful interviews. Her parents, her sisters, her whole community prayed and pleaded for her return, but I knew the truth. I kept it locked behind my teeth until the police pieced it together themselves. I'd been the last one seen with her, the one she trusted. And in the story I thought I was writing about my future, I became the villain instead. Not a researcher, not a babysitter. Just a cautionary tale that would follow me for the rest of my life. I was 15 the first time I learned adults could be cruel in ways that didn't look like cruelty, at least not at first. I don't mean yelling, grounding, or taking your phone away. I mean the kind of cruelty that rearranges something inside you, that changes how you look at people forever. I should start from the beginning. I grew up in a quiet suburban stretch of Ohio, the kind of place where every lawn looked the same but every mailbox leaned differently. The driveways were cracked, the siding faded, and the same handful of kids left their bikes strewn across the sidewalks until their parents yelled from porches. Everyone knew everyone's business, sometimes before you did. My parents were strict but not mean. My mom cleaned houses. My dad worked nights at a distribution warehouse. We weren't poor exactly, but tight was the word that fit. Tight bills, tight schedules, tight smiles when the car made that grinding noise again. If I wanted clothes that weren't from Goodwill or an iPod that didn't belong in a museum, I had to earn it. Babysitting became my way in. I started with the Andersons when I was 12. They lived 4 doors down, in the white ranch with the crooked porch light. 2 kids, Evan 6 and Lucy 8. Evan never stopped talking, like words would run out if he didn't use them fast enough. Lucy was sharp, quick to pick apart your sentences and ask questions that made you feel like you were applying for a job. They weren't bad, just wired differently, bright and restless. By 15, their house felt like second nature. Homework at the kitchen table, cartoons after dinner, popcorn if they were good, $10 an hour, easy. That Friday in November, Mrs. Anderson called to ask if I could come by at 6:30. Dinner downtown, she said. They'd be home by 11. When I got there, she was fastening her coat while Mr. Anderson hunted for his wallet. The usual routine. Evan's got spelling words, she said, handing me the list. Lucy's done with her math. Popcorn's fine, but no soda after 8. And don't let them con you into staying up late, I smiled. Got it, she squeezed my shoulder. Thanks, hun. You're a lifesaver. Then they were gone. The door clicked shut, leaving behind the faint smell of her floral perfume and his aftershave, the kind that lingered sharp in the air. The night unfolded like it always did. Spelling practice, a few rounds of Uno, popcorn in mismatched bowls. By 8:45, both kids were half asleep under blankets, eyes glued to an old Scooby-Doo rerun. Outside, rain started as a soft patter and grew heavier, the kind that rattled gutters and turned streets into mirrors. I remember thinking, perfect night. Easy money, then came the sound. A dull thud at the front door. I froze. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't a branch. It was too deliberate, measured like someone testing the wood. Lucy's head snapped up. What was that? She whispered. I forced calm into my voice. Probably just the wind. Even as I said it, there was another sound, softer this time, like weight shifting against the door. Pressing, retreating. Evan sat up. Somebody's out there. Shh, I hissed, holding up a hand. Hide behind the couch. For once, they didn't argue. They slid off the sofa and ducked behind the cushions, wide-eyed. I killed the TV, then the lamp. The room sank into darkness except for the green glow of the cable box clock. 9:02. The rain hammered harder. The house groaned and creaked, every sound suddenly louder, more alive. Then, the metallic click of the mail slot opening. A pause. Then the snap as it shut again. Someone was testing gaps. My stomach dropped. I reached for my phone, no bars. Storm interference, maybe. The blank signal icon glared up at me. I swallowed the panic rising in my throat and moved toward the kitchen, careful not to step too fast. The floorboards betrayed me anyway, soft creaks under my sneakers. The sound of the house listening. I opened the drawer by the sink and pulled out the chef's knife I'd washed earlier after slicing apples for the kids. The metal felt cold and heavy in my shaking hand. For a second, I thought about running out the back door, grabbing the kids, sprinting into the rain. But the Andersons' backyard opened straight into the woods, a stretch of black trees and wet ground with no fence, no streetlights, no close neighbors. If someone was out there waiting, we'd have nowhere to go. No, safer to stay inside. I knew this house. Every hallway, every hiding spot. I pressed myself against the wall by the hallway, holding my breath as the rain beat harder, the wind moaning low through the chimney. The knife handle slickened in my palm. I strained to listen, and then from the other side of the door, a slow, deliberate knock. Knife in one hand, phone in the other. My heartbeat thundered so hard it drowned out the rain. Every nerve in my body screamed, "Don't move." Then suddenly, the front door swung open. Two tall shapes lunged through the threshold, arms flung wide. Boo! For half a second, my brain couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. The storm flashed white behind them, rain-slicked coats, wet hair plastered to their faces, and then came the laughter. Loud, wild, full-bodied laughter. It hit me like a slap. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson stood in the doorway, doubled over, gasping between shrieks of laughter. "Oh my God!" Mrs. Anderson wheezed, clutching her side. "You should have seen your face!" I stood frozen, the knife trembling inches from Mr. Anderson's chest. He blinked, his grin faltering when he noticed the blade. "Whoa! Hey, easy there!" He lifted both hands slowly, palms out like he was trying to calm down a cop. Mrs. Anderson wiped at the tears on her cheeks, still giggling. "We just wanted to test your nerves." "Guess you passed." The laughter kept echoing, but all I could hear was my pulse pounding in my skull. My mouth went dry. I could barely speak. "You could have been stabbed." Mr. Anderson smirked, shaking rain from his hair. "Relax, all in good fun. We came home early." He turned, calling over his shoulder. "Put the kids to bed, will you? We're starving." And just like that, they breezed past me, as if nothing had happened. They trailed puddles into the kitchen, laughing again as they clattered dishes and rummaged through the fridge. I stood in the living room, hand still locked around the knife, adrenaline roaring through me like electricity. My body was shaking so hard I could barely breathe. Tiny faces peeked out from behind the couch, Lucy's eyes wide, Evan's lip trembling. "Was that?" Lucy started. "Your parents," I whispered, my voice flat, hollow. "Go upstairs, bedtime." I carried Evan up the stairs, his arms tight around my neck. Lucy followed silently, one hand clutching the banister. They didn't argue, didn't ask questions. For once the house was quiet, I tucked them in. The words came out wrong, like I was someone else speaking through me. "Good night. Your parents are home." I turned off the hall light. The knife was still in my hand. Downstairs, laughter rolled through the house again. The scent of butter and toasting bread filled the air, grilled cheese sizzling in a pan, cheerful, ordinary. But the sound made my stomach twist. I set the knife back in the drawer, washed the blade carefully, wiped it dry, removed every trace of my fingerprints. No one looked up. No one said thank you. They just stood shoulder to shoulder at the stove, humming along to the radio, bumping hips like newlyweds. The storm still raged outside, water streaking the windows, and I felt like I was watching strangers in someone else's home. At 10:30, Mrs. Anderson finally glanced over her shoulder. "You can head out now," she chirped. "Same pay as usual." I nodded, slipped my hoodie on, and stepped into the rain. The walk home was cold and endless. My sneakers squelched with every step. The night air smelled like wet pavement and ozone. I held the folded bills in my fists so tight they nearly tore. When I got home, I went straight to my room. I didn't even change out of my soaked clothes. I just lay there on my back, staring at the ceiling, watching flashes of lightning paint the walls white. The image replayed again and again. The door bursting open, their shapes in the stormlight. My hand shaking with the knife. Mr. Anderson's coat dark and slick, looking for a moment like something out of a crime show, the kind of thing you see right before a scream. That was when it hit me. I'd been one heartbeat away from changing everything. one reflex away from spilling blood across their polished floors. And worse, they didn't care. My fear had been their entertainment. I never babysat for them again. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Anderson texted, "Hey hun, can you do Saturday night?" I typed back, "Sorry, too busy with school." She didn't reply. Didn't ask again. Now sometimes when I walk past their house, I see that familiar porch light glowing. Toys in the yard. The sound of cartoons bleeding through the window. Everything looks perfectly normal. Just another family on a quiet Ohio street. But I know better. That night taught me two things. Panic feels exactly like danger. And some adults never really grow up. Even now, I double-check every door I lock. I keep my phone charged, my exits clear. And whenever someone laughs about a harmless prank, I feel the weight of that knife again, cold, trembling in my hand, and I just shake my head. No, I never really liked babysitting. I never thought a babysitting job could change the way I looked at houses. Babysitting had always just been easy money. Better than sweating over a fryer or bagging groceries while someone barked at me about paper or plastic. My mom used to joke that I was the neighborhood nanny, because every other week someone called me when their sitter bailed. By 17, I thought I'd seen it all. Feed the kids, bathe them, get them to bed, then scroll through my phone or raid the pantry until the parents came home. Easy. At least it always had been. That summer, though, money was tight. My stepdad's construction work had dried up, and my mom was working fewer shifts at the diner since her wrist injury. I was saving for community college classes in the fall, and every dollar counted. So when Mrs. Whitaker called me last July, I said yes before she even finished her sentence. "Rachel, I know it's last minute," she said breathlessly over the phone. The clatter of hangers or heels in the background. "Our sitter canceled on us. We just need someone for a few hours tonight. Josh and Caleb already know you. Remember the church potluck? They'll be thrilled." "Yes," I said immediately. "I can come." I needed the cash, no question. The Whitakers lived on Cedar Lane, a quiet street lined with tall maples and a neat row of identical two-story houses, every porch light glowing like a copy-paste dream of suburban comfort. Their place sat across from St. Luke's Catholic Church, the one with the crumbling brick tower and bells that chimed on the hour. The neighborhood wasn't creepy. It was clean, calm, middle class. But when I stepped inside their house, something felt wrong. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Damp. Old wood that never quite dried out. Beneath it lingered something faintly metallic, like water sitting too long in pipes. The air felt heavy, thick, like it hadn't been stirred in days. Even the wooden floors groaned softly when no one was walking. "Thanks so much for coming," Mrs. Whitaker said, rushing to the door with a half-buttoned blouse and one heel dangling from her hand. Her husband appeared behind her, tugging at his tie, his skin pale and sallow under the warm hallway light. His eyes flicked toward the stairs before landing on me with a tired nod. "The boys already had dinner," Mrs. Whitaker said, pressing a folded sheet of paper into my hand. "Snacks if they ask. Bath by 7, bed by 9. Emergency numbers are on the fridge." Then lowering her voice, she added, "And if they say anything strange, just go along with it. They've been imaginative lately." Imaginative. The word stuck in my head like a burr. I forced a smile. Got it. The second the Whitakers left, the house changed. Quieter, but not peaceful, just listening. Then came the pounding of small feet on the stairs. Josh and Caleb barreled into the living room, Lego bricks clutched in their hands. "You're our sitter?" Caleb, the younger one, asked, squinting up at me with serious blue eyes. "Yep," I said, smiling. "Just me tonight." Josh grinned, a flash of missing teeth. "Want to see our fort?" "Fort first, bath later," Caleb announced, tugging on my sleeve with authority. Their fort was a collapsing cave of couch cushions and blankets in the middle of the living room. I got down on my knees, crawling inside with them, pretending to be amazed by the tiny flashlight glow in the piles of Lego soldiers. For a while, it felt like any other babysitting job, kids laughing, pretending to be explorers, the steady comfort of background noise. Then Caleb froze. The flashlight beam wobbled. His smile vanished as he stared past me down the dark hallway. "Don't," Josh muttered sharply, nudging him. "What?" I asked, sitting up a little. "Nothing." Caleb said too quickly. But he didn't look away from the hall. A cold prickle crept up the back of my neck. I brushed it off and changed the subject, but the laughter didn't come back as easily. Around 6:30, I went into the kitchen to grab them juice boxes. The hum of the old refrigerator filled the silence. I pulled out 2 fruit punches, set them on the counter, and turned to grab straws from the drawer. Behind me came a sudden, sharp pop. I spun around. One of the juice boxes had burst open, the thin foil seal split wide. Red fruit punch sprayed across the counter in thin lines, dripping down the white cabinet doors like blood. "What the hell?" I yelped, jerking back. The boys peeked in from the doorway. Caleb's face drained of color. "It does that sometimes," he whispered. "Juice boxes don't just explode," I said, grabbing a paper towel and wiping at the mess, though my hands were trembling. "They do here," Josh said flatly. He didn't blink, didn't smirk, just said it like a fact, like gravity. The words hit the air and seemed to hang there. I forced a weak laugh, but the sound came out shaky. "Right. Guess your fridge is haunted." Neither of them laughed back. As I scrubbed the sticky counter, the damp smell in the air thickened. And somewhere under the floorboards, or maybe behind the walls, I thought I heard something shift, like the sigh of old wood exhaling after being disturbed. By 7 o'clock, it was bath time. I ran the faucet until steam fogged the mirror and the air smelled faintly of soap and rust. The boys splashed in the tub, laughing and arguing about who got the red boat. I leaned against the hallway wall, scrolling absently through my phone, half listening to their chatter. Across the hall, their dad's office door was cracked open. Inside, the glow from the setting sun lit dust floating through the air. A small desk sat against the far wall, an ancient desktop computer perched on top. I'd noticed it earlier but hadn't paid much attention, until I heard it. Ding. Then another. The computer screen flickered to life. The low hum of the fan filled the silence. Blue light spilled into the hallway. My stomach dropped. I stepped closer, peering in. No one had touched it. The keyboard was coated in a film of dust. Keys slightly yellowed. The mouse sat perfectly still. The desktop displayed no icons, just a blank blue background. I hesitated at the threshold, my breath catching. The house was utterly silent except for the faint hiss of running bathwater behind me. My heart hammered as I crossed the room. Every step on the creaky floorboards felt too loud. I leaned over, grabbed the thick black power cord, and yanked it out of the socket. The light died instantly, leaving the room darker than before. For a second, I just stood there, forcing air back into my lungs. Then I backed out quickly, my hands shaking as I closed the door behind me. When I returned to the bathroom, both boys had gone quiet. Caleb was staring at me from the tub, eyes wide, water dripping down his chin. "You saw it, didn't you?" he whispered. I blinked. Saw what? He didn't answer. He just sank lower into the water, bubbles rising around his mouth. By 9, both boys were tucked beneath their superhero blankets, heads nestled into pillows, breathing deep and even. The house felt calmer then. I crept downstairs, turned on the old boxy TV in the living room, and tried to relax. Some local commercial murmured in the background, its sound tinny and low. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Pacing directly above me. I froze, thumb hovering over the remote. The sound moved back and forth, deliberate, like someone walking from one end of the hallway to the other. The boys, maybe they'd gotten up. I muted the TV and strained to listen. Still pacing. Forcing myself to move, I climbed the stairs one step at a time, each creak of the old wood echoing like a heartbeat. I peeked into the boys' room. Both were fast asleep, faces relaxed, blankets undisturbed. The hallway was empty. I checked every door. Guest room, empty. Bathroom, nothing. Office, dark, the unplugged cord still coiled on the floor. My skin prickled. Back downstairs, I texted my best friend Jenna. "Me, I swear this house is haunted." Jenna. "Old houses make noise. Don't freak yourself out." But this wasn't random creaks. This was weight, steps, measured and intentional. 10 minutes later, it started again. I didn't move this time. I curled up on the couch, phone clutched in both hands, every muscle tense. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint tick of the wall clock, they all sounded amplified, wrong. My eyes flicked toward the ceiling every few seconds. Then came a soft thud, followed by whispering. At first, I thought it was the TV's leftover echo, but the sound was real. Muffled voices, faint, like two children murmuring secrets just beyond earshot. But the boys were asleep. I crept halfway up the stairs and froze, one hand on the banister. The whispering grew louder, threading through the air like breath. I couldn't make out the words, just rhythm, repetition, almost like chanting. Then silence. I stood there, heart pounding so hard I thought it might shake the walls. Finally, I forced myself to move. I peeked again into the boys' room. Both were out cold, mouths slightly open, their soft breathing perfectly steady. That's when I saw it. The framed photo on their dresser, a picture of the boys smiling on the beach, was lying face down. I hadn't touched it. I knew I hadn't. The house felt suddenly colder, like the air itself was holding its breath. When the Whitakers finally came home around 10:30, I nearly jumped off the couch. Mrs. Whitaker smiled politely, heels clicking on the hardwood, but her eyes searched my face. "Everything all right?" she asked. "The boys were great," I said quickly, forcing my voice to sound casual. She nodded slowly but didn't look convinced. As I grabbed my jacket from the coat rack, a small voice drifted from the stairs. "Rachel?" I turned. Caleb stood there in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes, hair sticking up in all directions. His voice was sleepy but clear. "They don't like new people here." Before I could respond, Mr. Whitaker appeared, scooping him up into his arms. "Bad dreams," he murmured, barely looking at me. I didn't wait. I mumbled a quick goodnight and bolted for the door. The night air outside hit me like a gasp. I didn't breathe properly until I was in my car, doors locked, engine running. Driving home, Caleb's voice replayed in my head over and over. "They don't like new people here." I babysat for the Whitakers twice more that summer, but never past 9. And I always brought a friend, because whatever lived in that house, I knew it wasn't just my imagination. I never thought I'd end up hiring a nanny. I always imagined myself as the kind of mom who could handle it all. Work, kids, the house. That control was my pride, my identity. But life doesn't care about pride. My name's Rachel. I'm 32, living just outside St. Paul, Minnesota, in a 2-story rental with my husband, Jack, and our 2 kids, Noah, who just turned 5, and Laya, our wild little 2-year-old. The truth? I was drowning. Between my accounting job, housework, and the constant noise, I was running on fumes. Jack helped when he could, but his construction job kept him out late, and by the time he got home, he'd collapse on the couch, half asleep before dinner was done. So, against every stubborn instinct, I agreed we needed help. Just a few afternoons a week, someone to keep the kids occupied so I could breathe. I still remember the day Jolene showed up. She wasn't what I expected. It was a gray Tuesday, the kind of sky that looks swollen with snow. Work emails pinged from my laptop. Dishes towered in the sink. Noah was sprinting through the living room with a plastic sword while Laya chased him, shrieking with laughter. I was halfway through a deep sigh when the doorbell rang. Jolene stood on the porch in a long, ankle-length skirt and a cardigan that looked like it had time-traveled from the 1970s. Thick framed glasses, no purse, just a small canvas bag clutched tightly to her chest. "Hi," I said, pushing a loose hair behind my ear. "You must be Jolene." "Yes, ma'am," she said in a low, clipped tone. Not rude, just stripped of emotion. Her eyes flicked over me, then darted around the room like she was cataloging everything. "Come in," I offered, stepping aside. Jack wasn't home yet, so it was just me and the kids. Noah peeked out from behind the couch, wary, while Laya toddled up with her thumb in her mouth. Jolene crouched down, but she didn't smile. Didn't use that high-pitched baby voice everyone defaults to around toddlers. "Hello," she said simply. I laughed awkwardly. "They're shy." "They'll get used to me," Jolene replied matter-of-fact. The interview itself went fine, at least on paper. She said she'd helped families in the area, mostly single moms who needed childcare. She had references, though none of them answered when I called later. She responded to every question politely, but with that same chill. No warmth, no small talk. Still, she checked enough boxes, and desperation drowned out my hesitation. "Okay," I said finally. Let's give it a try. Her mouth twitched into what might have been a smile. Yes, ma'am. At first she wasn't bad. Always punctual. Always dressed the same. Long skirt, buttoned cardigan, hair pulled back tight. She fed the kids, kept the house quiet, folded laundry without being asked. But she rarely engaged with them. No playtime, no laughter, no singing along to cartoons. It was all function, no affection. Most nannies I'd seen, at least the ones in my friends' stories, tried to bond with the kids. Jolene worked like she was running an assembly line. Feed, clean, nap, repeat. One afternoon I overheard Noah ask, "Do you want to play Legos with me?" Her voice floated from the next room, calm, steady. "You should play by yourself, Noah. That's how you learn discipline." I frowned from the kitchen sink, hand still under the running water. Discipline? He's 5. But I shrugged it off. Maybe she just had an old-fashioned mindset. Still, something in her tone unsettled me. Things shifted about 3 weeks in. I came home early, around 4:30, to an eerie stillness. Usually the house buzzed with noise, but that day only faint murmurs came from upstairs. I climbed the steps quietly and stopped outside Noah's door. It was slightly open. Jolene stood by the bed, folding his clothes into a neat pile. Noah stood in the corner, his small body rigid, face red, eyes watering. "Don't cheat now," Jolene said, her voice low but sharp. "You know you made a mistake." My pulse kicked. "What's going on?" I demanded, stepping in. Noah gasped and clutched his chest like he'd been holding his breath too long. "What the hell is this?" I snapped. Jolene didn't even flinch. Her glasses glinted in the dim light as she looked up. "He fibbed about cleaning his toys," she said calmly. "I told him to hold his breath until I finished folding the stack. It teaches restraint." "What?" My voice cracked. "You can't do that. He's 5 years old." "You could have heard him," I shouted, clutching Noah as he buried his face in my leg, shaking like a leaf. His tiny hands were clammy, his heartbeat hammering against me. Jack came pounding up the stairs 2 at a time, voice sharp. "What the hell's going on?" I pointed at Jolene, my chest heaving. She made him hold his breath. Said it teaches restraint. Jolene stood in the doorway, perfectly calm. Her expression didn't shift, didn't register guilt or fear. Just that same hollow stillness that made my skin crawl. Jack rubbed his temples, exhaling hard. "Look, Jolene," he said, voice tight. "We don't punish our kids like that, ever. If there's a problem, you tell us." "Understood?" "Yes, sir," she replied flatly, her tone mechanical. I wanted her gone, right then, right there, but Jack, always the practical one, pulled me aside later. "We don't have anyone else lined up, Rach. Let's just warn her and keep an eye on things for now." I hated the idea, but exhaustion and fear blurred into compliance. "Fine," I muttered, but that sick feeling in my gut wouldn't leave. A few nights later, I was hunched over tax papers at the dining table, the lamp casting a soft pool of light. The kids were still awake, their laughter drifting down the hallway. Jolene appeared silently in the doorway. "Can I go home now?" she asked, hands clasped neatly in front of her. "Stay until they're in bed," I said distractedly, eyes fixed on the calculator. Silence. Then I sensed her still standing there. When I looked up, her lips had curled, not into a smile, but something faintly mocking, deliberate. Without another word, she turned and walked out the door. 2 weeks passed before the night that still visits me in flashes. It was around 2 in the morning when thirst pulled me from sleep. Jack snored softly beside me. I slipped downstairs barefoot, too groggy to bother with the lights. The moonlight through the kitchen window looked cold, almost metallic. I reached for a glass, filled it, took a sip, and froze. Warm breath brushed the back of my neck. My hand trembled. The glass clinked softly against the counter. I turned slowly. 2 faintly glowing eyes stared back at me in the dark. My heart slammed against my ribs. Then her face took shape in the moonlight. Jolene, standing inches away, her pale skin ghostly, her lips twitching like she was suppressing a laugh. "Can I go home now, ma'am?" she whispered. I nearly dropped the glass. "What? What are you doing here?" "You told me to stay," she said in that same even tone. So I stayed. My scream ripped through the silence. Jack came stumbling down the stairs, hair disheveled, eyes wide. When he saw her, his whole face went white. "Get your stuff," he snapped, voice shaking. "I'll drive you home now." Jolene nodded once, calm as ever, her eyes still fixed on me until she disappeared out the door. That night I didn't sleep. Every creak, every rustle felt like her breathing near my ear again. A few days later, trying to pretend life was normal, I took the kids to the park. Against my better judgment, Jolene came too. Jack insisted she'd agreed to a final day to smooth things out. The air was crisp, sunlight thin through the clouds. The kids ran ahead while Jolene stood stiffly beside me under a tree, hands folded like always. Then a woman across the park waved. "Jolene!" she called, smiling as she hurried over. Jolene's body tensed instantly. The woman hugged her. "Oh my gosh, how are you? Haven't seen you since the hospital." My stomach dropped. "Hospital?" I asked. Jolene's voice faltered. Yes. I had an accident last year." The woman smiled, nodding. "Yep, she was my patient. Harrington Hospital. Took care of her for months." When the woman left, I turned to Jolene. "Why didn't you ever mention being in the hospital?" Her jaw tightened. It wasn't important. The way she said it, so cold, so final, made my skin prickle. That night after Jack and I put the kids to bed, I called Harrington Hospital. My voice trembled as I gave Jolene's name. The nurse on the line hesitated before answering softly. "Yes, she was here, but not for an accident. She was a psychiatric patient admitted 3 years ago." My head spun. I told Jack and his face went pale. "We need to get her out of our lives, now." We rushed home, hearts pounding. But as soon as we stepped inside, the air felt wrong. Heavy, still. The house was pitch black. "Noah?" "Laya," I called. No answer. Then we heard it, a faint thunk. Thunk, thunk, coming from upstairs. Wet, rhythmic. We tore up the stairs, the sound growing louder. I shoved open Laya's bedroom door. Empty. The bathroom light flickered, casting broken flashes of white on the walls. My hand shook as I pushed the door open. Jolene sat on the tile floor, her back to me. In her hand glinted a kitchen knife, slick with something dark. She was stabbing over and over into something just out of view. "Jolene!" I screamed. She turned slowly. Her face was a grotesque mask. Her grin stretched too wide, her glasses cracked, and behind the lenses her eyes gleamed with something inhuman. "Oh," she whispered, voice trembling with false delight. "You're here. I was just finishing." I screamed until my throat tore. Jack lunged, tackling her to the ground, the knife clattering away. I ran to the tub and saw Laya, my baby. Her small body was limp, her skin pale. "No, no, no." I sobbed, pulling her into my arms, rocking her, begging her to wake up. Noah's cries echoed from the hallway where he'd been hiding. The world broke open in that bathroom. Jolene didn't fight the police. She smiled as they led her away in handcuffs, her glasses still crooked, her face serene. At the trial, we learned she'd been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. She believed children carried sin in their lungs, that making them hold their breath could cleanse them. None of it mattered. My daughter was gone. Jack and I barely survived the months that followed. Noah still wakes screaming some nights, and sometimes when the house is dead quiet, I swear I hear that voice again, close, whispering behind me. "Can I go home now, ma'am?" Every time my blood runs cold. Honestly, I only took babysitting gigs when money got tight. At 19, I was juggling community college classes by day and a part-time coffee shop job by night. My mom pulled double shifts as a nurse, and my stepdad, well, he was more rumor than presence. Rent ate through everything I earned. So when a woman named Laura Whitaker called asking if I could babysit on Halloween night, I hesitated. Halloween had always felt off for me. I grew up in Brookhaven, a small town about half an hour outside Columbus, Ohio, where people treated the holiday like a competition. Yards buried in fog machines, motion-activated skeletons and fake corpses dangling from maple branches. When I was a kid, I loved it. But somewhere between high school and adulthood, the magic rotted. Maybe because I'd seen enough of the real horrors of the world to make fake blood feel childish. Still, $50 for 3 hours. Hard to say no to that. Laura said she got my number from my mom's church friend and she sounded nervous, her words tripping over themselves. Hi, this is Laura Whitaker. I hope I'm not calling too late. Nancy mentioned you babysit sometimes. My husband and I, well, something came up tonight and we need someone to watch our daughter, Allie. She's 7. Really, she's no trouble at all. She'll already be asleep when you get here. You just need to stay until we're back. We'll pay extra. I wound the cord of my cheap phone around my finger, thinking, sure. Where do you live? She rattled off an address on Sycamore Lane, a quiet, upper-middle-class neighborhood I only knew because a kid from my high school had lived there. Wide streets, trimmed hedges, mailboxes that matched. What time? I asked. 7:30. We'll be back around midnight, is that all right? It was. After helping Mom unload groceries that evening, I grabbed my jacket and slipped into my beat-up Honda Civic. Rain had been threatening all day, heavy clouds pressing down on the horizon, but it still hadn't started. The streets were crawling with trick-or-treaters, kids squealing under streetlights, candy bags bouncing at their sides, parents trailing behind with umbrellas and coffee cups. I pulled into Sycamore Lane around 7:20. The Whitakers' house stood out immediately. 2 stories, white siding, black shutters, and a yard so packed with Halloween decorations it looked like a movie set. Plastic gravestones tilted in fake soil. A giant inflatable spider clung to the roof. Orange lights flickered along the porch rails, tangled in webs that shimmered in the wind. Laura and her husband were already waiting by the door when I walked up. She was petite, maybe mid-30s, with auburn hair pinned in a bun. Her husband, Tom, was tall, square-jawed, and looked like he hadn't smiled properly in a while. Jessie, right? Laura asked as she opened the door. Jessica, I corrected, smiling a little. But Jessie's fine. She exhaled in relief and ushered me inside. Thank you so much for coming. We were about to cancel until Nancy mentioned you. Tom shook my hand, firm, polite, practiced. We won't be far. Just a little get-together down the street. If you need us, Laura left our number on the kitchen phone. The house gleamed. Hardwood floors that glowed like honey, high ceilings, and a faint scent of pumpkin spice candles lingering in the air. Allie's already asleep, Laura said, lowering her voice as she led me toward the staircase. Her room's at the top, first door on the right. Long day at school, then trick-or-treating. She was exhausted. Got it, I said. There's food in the fridge, soda in the pantry. Help yourself. She smiled again, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. And, don't mind the storm if it comes. These old windows rattle something awful. Tom jingled his keys. Ready? Laura nodded, heading upstairs for a quick kiss goodnight to her daughter. Then they were gone, just like that. Silence filled the house, broken only by the rhythmic tick of the grandfather clock in the foyer. I stood there for a moment, coat still in my hands, feeling that uneasy chill of being alone in someone else's too big, too quiet home. Kicking off my shoes, I wandered into the kitchen and grabbed a can of root beer. The back window gave me a view of the yard, where kids still darted between houses, laughter floating faintly through the damp air. By 8 o'clock, I was curled on their couch, Netflix loading painfully slow on their smart TV. I scrolled past the endless wall of horror movies, no thanks, and landed on an old rerun of Friends. Something about canned laughter felt safe, predictable. But the quiet between the laughs felt louder than the show itself. Every soft creak of the floorboards made my chest tighten. Every gust of wind scraping against the siding made me look toward the window. Then I saw it. Upstairs. A faint thin line of light slipping from a doorway. I frowned. Laura said Allie was asleep. Maybe a nightlight. I turned the TV volume down until the laughter faded into static. The house seemed to breathe. Nothing but the rattle of the shutters and the low hum of the refrigerator. Still, curiosity tugged at me. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step letting out a low wooden groan. The hallway smelled faintly of lavender and clean laundry. When I reached Allie's door, I saw it was cracked open. Light spilled through the narrow gap. I nudged it gently with my fingertips. Allie? I whispered. She was curled beneath her blankets, hair splayed across the pillow, breathing soft and steady, fast asleep. Relief washed over me, quiet and heavy as the air before a storm.